Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to do a little video of a off-brand Holley unboxing, opening. We're going to go through it before we install it on my Galaxy out there. It is a 350 CFM 2-barrel Holley knockoff. Before you guys roast me in the comments, I absolutely know, is this not, is this going to be Holley quality? No, I know that. But you have to wonder, Holley gets their parts offshore. They have actually told me that themselves. All their parts come in offshore, they assemble, clean, test everything in-house at their facilities. I'm not trying to run around Holley or say that we need to get rid of Holley or do anything like that. I have a low budget ride right now that I'm just trying to get on the road. I've had it for a year, so I'm trying this carburetor out to see if even the transmission is functional. It's an oddball medium case cast iron transmission from 1964. It hasn't seen the road in 34 years. I'm seeing how well the engine is doing. I have gone through it. I've done head gaskets and things like that. So this is going to be a quick unboxing. We're going to take a look and see what you get from Amazon. I have even waited against my will about 12 hours after it's arrived at my house to do this video. So you get to see and I get to see both at the same time what's involved in this carburetor. It was $269. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name of the brand. It was labeled as a 350 CFM 2-barrel Holley copy. They coincidentally use the same part number as Holley for this carburetor. That matches up to their 2-barrel 350 CFM. I'm going to assume that this is probably going to be the same pretty much as the 500 CFM with the 50 cc accelerator pump. Why I didn't choose that for this engine, even though it's a 390, is because it came with a 325 2-barrel. This is a slight increase, and honestly, a 500 CFM with the 50 cc accelerator pump is pretty much geared towards your dirt track or your racing guys. You're going to have a heck of a time getting this thing tuned and probably lose a little bit of drivability and mile to the gallon if you step up to the 500. If you're going to step up to the 500 just for a street car, I would suggest going to a 4-barrel and sticking with like a 500 or 600 CFM carburetor that, has a smaller primary to get a better throttle response and mileage. Do what you want. Here we go. We're going to get into it. We're going to unbox this. We're going to comb through it. I'm going to put it out on the car and we're going to fire it up and see how well it actually does. Here we go. Have my dull box cutter, sharper than I was expecting. Oh, thank God, it's in another box. I was worried. It's just going to be floating out here. Here we are, part number on the box, X004C0M1F3. I'll put this in the description. And it is an exact replacement to aluminum polished, made in China, and then some other scribble scrabble. This pretty much can translate to a Harry. Not a Holley, a Harry. Alright, we're going to unbox this thing. This thing has been wrapped 10 times with tape. Definitely a lot of tape. Cool. Alright, so right off the bat, I'll bring you in here when we go through it a little bit more. You get a gasket for the base plate, which is already pushed through in garbage, and an air cleaner gasket. There is an inline fitting, looks like for a 5/16 hose barb, and some other odds and ends pieces. And screws, a little spring, and a hose clamp, bendy hose clamp deal. So you get that. Bunch of styrofoam, so it's packed decent. Bubble wrap. Actually, semi-decent. That's it in there. I'm actually shocked. Wrapped in plastic. Appears to be what they say it is. It's extremely polished. More so than I was expecting. Surface appears flat. Actually has some weight to it, shockingly enough. Alright, so right off the bat, trying to move the manual choke. Has great action. Zero binding whatsoever. Okay, so that functions. The throttle flap, pretty flawless too, honestly. Is it actually stopping on the screw? It is not, but let's see, we open our choke up. Now we're good. Okay, so that's functioning as it should. So it is keeping it in fast idle. We are returning all the way to the screw stop. Now, I'm going to pull you in here a little bit so you can see what I'm looking at. Their transfer slot seems to be pretty close actually. A little bit of what I'm talking about with the transfer slots. Okay, choke open all the way, and you look down in here into this carburetor with the light. You can see once I start to open the throttle, there is those large slots. Well, that's supposed to be set to pretty much a square right off the bat. And it's very hard to see with the light, but you see right where this starts to open, they're pretty much set. I mean, they're really darn close. I'm probably going to open them up just a smidgen more when I set this on the car, just for a good baseline. Okay, you can see right here, everything actually looks pretty darn decent. Okay, that functions very nice and easy. The linkage looks identical to a Holley. Okay, going to start pulling it apart. I can already see some stuff that I'm not liking, but I was expecting. One of those, if you can see with the color of the gaskets in here for the metering block and the bowl, you can see that that's the brown, crappy gaskets. Now Holley uses blue gaskets that are much more well versed in keeping leaks from happening. They're reusable and they are less susceptible to our magical fuel issues. If I can get a year out of this, I'd be happy. Then I can just order a new gasket set from Holley and go through and put new gaskets on. So hopefully the internals are identical copies as well. I'm also seeing that this metering block here, where your normal fuel screws are, is entirely different design. That kind of scares me a little bit. It makes me think that this probably internally is not exact like a Holley. You have your large vacuum port here if you have power brakes or anything of that nature, and you have your other vacuum port here as well. This is all pretty much standard for Holley. The other thing I am seeing right off the bat is these screws here for the throttle blades are not peened over at all. They are just installed. So before I would install this on my car, I would take a punch and a hammer and peen these over very gently. So that way it keeps them from backing out and falling into your engine. So yeah, that wouldn't be good. I'm going to put this back on the table and we're going to start going through it. All right, another thing that I'm noting right off the bat as well is these are all flatheads. This is normally Phillips head screws. This also as well has a normal style accelerator pump. These are Phillips head screws. It's much more to the norm. Trying to see anything else. The casting honestly looks dead on, the exception of a few random things. For instance, their fuel sight levels on the actual picture itself for the Amazon product shows it having glass sight bowls on the side here to set your fuel level, which would be much more normal. This has a glass sight in the very front of the carburetor itself. That's definitely not a good sign for what I was hoping. Not sure yet if we'll keep this guy. We'll check it out. Also, something I'm noting, this is not part of the casting. Looks like you could actually unscrew it and pull it off and put a fuel line in there as well. The normal fuel line right here, if you can see, that's set up for a fuel line. This looks more like a block-off plug. So this is a very generic casting. I don't see any engraving numbers on it or anything that notes it as being a 350 CFM, but I will say that these butterfly ports are pretty darn close to what the CFM rating is set at. Now we're going to see if this is actually 5/16 normal. It fits, but I'm betting it's probably 8 millimeters if you measured it. I'm going to loosen one. Worth anything. Alright, so right off the bat here, I am seeing that it's wet. So this has been tested. I don't know how long ago it's been tested, but it's either been run by another customer that sent it back, which is kind of scary, or they actually tested it. This is varnishy smell. This has been sitting for a very long time. I can't tell if this is gasoline that's old. You can see the wet sheen here. This gasket has definitively been used. But I can't tell if it's an old smell. Has jets in it, unmarked on size. Power valve seems to be functioning and okay. I don't see any debris, which is a nice sign. This looks similar to what power valve would normally be. The varnishy smell kind of has me worried, but I don't know if that's because it was tested and it's been sitting for a while. As far as float level, this is way off. This should almost be like horizontal like this, and this is completely way too high. Like I can guarantee you right now that this would be flooding the engine out. Maybe I'm wrong because this is a different way to set your float. I would have to see first, but the float design is a little bit different. You can see internally the float looks similar. Looks like it was soldered decently. I can't tell if the sight window is just higher and that's what's causing it. It seems to be a similar needle and seat design. Outside of that, we have, assuming, threaded bleeds here. This is a very similar casting. Seemed to be metalwork done pretty well. It's that same varnishy smell. Could have just been what they used to test them. I'm not afraid to throw this on the car and test it out. I'm still uncertain if I want to try it out because these gaskets, they don't look that great, to be truthful. I don't have anything to test the jet size since they aren't labeled. I'm not sure. They're tight. That's good. You're probably going to see a pause in a second. I'm going to go out and grab. I have extra jets for these Holleys. I'm going to see if it's the same thread. If it's not the same thread, I may just send it back, but I'll try it out. The same varnish smell, but they're clear. They're all the way, but they are definitely not numbered. I'm going to go get a jet. I'm just going to take, here you can see for yourself, it is a Holley jet kit. I'm just going to pop one out and see if it's even the same thread. See if you can even tune this thing. It did not come with jets. I see a couple do on Amazon. See if it's the same thread. Shockingly enough, it is the same thread. They were at least smart enough to do that. So I'm not sure what this is jetted with. We can see how it does. Holley's usually pretty good about jetting these correctly for your application, but since this is a Holley, I'm not sure how well this one is jetted. And if you hear yelling and hooting and hollering and pounding on the ground in the background, that would be my two boys upstairs. So I apologize if you hear that. Kind of stuck inside today with the weather, so kids are just being kids. Alright, so I'm going to put this back together. I feel decent enough about it to try it. Power valve seems to be functioning. Those are all tight. Again, you can kind of see here, this gasket's a little drooped here in the center. It doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy about it. This definitely reminds me of old gaskets that I have scraped off of older carburetor rebuilds I've done for people over the years. These are always a pain in the butt to get off. They do not like fuel that we use today. Alright, so I literally go out and try to install this, and I pulled the fitting out of the bag. Can't even get it installed. You can see down in here, I'm assuming I'm missing some sort of flare adapter reducer deal. Here's what they gave you. You can see that's more like a pipe fitting, and yeah, it's... So I'm assuming there's probably a fitting that I didn't get in the bag that I was supposed to. So I'm going to go and root through all my stuff and see if I can find something. Alright, so to get you back in here, I'm going to start pulling this guy off. I already have our advance undone. My kids keep hitting the garage with their soccer ball, so that's normal around here, so don't mind that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. Should be fairly simple, hopefully. I ended up finding a fitting. Luckily, I had from an old Holley Street Avenger I had years ago. And that ended up fitting that port that I showed you before. So if you didn't have that, plan on making yourself your own fitting out of line. And a little piece of hose. The hard part of B is it's a tiny piece of hose here with this, I believe it's 1/2 by 20. It's whatever basically hose and a 3/8 fuel line. So that's normal for Holley. So if you have some random spare parts laying around for Holley, you'll be okay. So far, I'm not so keen on this thing. I'm kind of second guessing my decision at this point. But I also see that my accelerator pump on my only 1-year-old rebuild is leaking. That's nice for a hot air intake. So, I'm going to have to address something. A lot of you guys that would be intending upon doing this swap probably be doing a similar situation. Just need something to be a good driver, something reliable. My wife doesn't need a giant carburetor intake, stuff like that. Okay. Does it fit? Seems to be semi-flat. I can tell you one thing though, without the spacer, your fuel line, unless you make a bent outlet, is going to be pointed directly at your intake, and you'll probably not have enough room. Quite frankly, I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough room. I'll take you in here. There's my line. You can see now with the spacer, it's pretty much going right into the intake. Okay, this is the point of no return now. I have everything bypassed. I can't give you a driving review on this because the car is not road legal yet. Everything is bypassed here. I have to redo all the electric. So I'm going to get this to a decent starting point. I'm going to crank it. Hopefully it will prime the fuel pump, and then once it starts priming, we'll go. If it starts leaking and pouring all over the place, this will be where we cut off. All right, immediately it took in fuel, no problem. I'm seeing it right out of the side class. I don't see any leaks at this point in time. Okay, I got 2 pumps from my primer. That accelerator pump's functioning. What happens next? Oh wow. Dude, I can't hate on that. That was immediate fire up. Wow. It's pumping and priming. I mean, you can't hate that. Probably too early to pull the choke off. No? It doesn't hate it at all. Truly, actually, kind of shocked at this point. No. Alright, I'm just going to try to bump it without even hitting the accelerator pump. I already think I see what is the lacking on this carburetor. Crazy. Not enough. Here we go. Alright, so we need to, where are we at right here? We're at 10 degrees. Alright, I need to be up to 850.
At this point, I started doing the happy dance between setting timing and fuel mixture screws and getting in and out of the car and putting it in reverse and drive and seeing how the carburetor acted. It was outperforming my expectations, to be completely honest. And I had started to rethink on sending it back due to it being different from a Holley. It was really performing very well. At this point in time, I got out and stared at it and realized we had an issue.
Alright. Now this is going to be difficult to see. Right there, if you can see the shininess, right on the edge of the accelerator pump, it is leaking. I've had it running 10 minutes. It ran great. I got everything adjusted. It was super close out of the box, but I can't do it. This thing is a fire hazard waiting to happen. It is already leaking out of the accelerator pump. It's either been used in the past and somebody sent it back, or it was tested and put away for a long time and the gaskets are super wet from that, deteriorated. Well, that does it for this test and review. My final thoughts: I'm going to let this cool down and I'm going to box it back up after I drain the gasoline and send it back. I'm not surprised that they're making copies of this stuff. Holley let their copyrights go. So Edelbrock took over. A bunch of Chinese copies have took over. They obviously have their flaws. The body itself is actually pretty dang on close. In fact, I would consider saying that you could safely say that's a Holley base. In the main body, it looks to be too. The metering plate and the float bowl, 100% knockoff in their own way too. The only good thing I can say is if you had to put your fuel line on, say, the driver's side instead of the passenger side, like this Ford, you could probably undo this. I can see a seal right here. You can unscrew that and change that to the other side. That would be a plus side. The negative side I see to this is this front sight bulb glass gasket. I'm going to assume it's going to be an O-ring. That's not going to be a normal Holley repair thing. How well that stands up to fuel, I don't know. The gaskets inside are the old crappy cork kind. These were already pre-soaked, and the accelerator pump, now 10 minutes into running, leaked. Outside of that, I can't say anything bad. This ran beautifully. You saw it fired up immediately. I mean, I primed it and it lit off. Like, bam. Floats were set perfect. I wouldn't have even touched the floats. Nothing else is leaking except for the accelerator pump, but I can't send my family out and my wife out in this thing the way it sits if it's going to leak this easily right off the bat. I know it's going to give me problems down the line. So if you're the maker of this carburetor, I'm sorry. I'm not sponsored. This isn't obviously a sponsored review. I was really hoping to come back here and say, this thing's perfect. I'm cool with going out and taking my family out, and we're going to drive across the state and have a good time with this thing for a cheaper price. But this is another one of those things that you get what you pay for. So thanks for watching. See you next time.